Hello, welcome to the fourth edition of the Jake Morrison Show. I am your host, and today we have a special guest, Mark Neely, here. Mark, welcome to the show.
Jake, appreciate it. Glad to be a guest. My apologies for my very casual attire. Where I live at
It's
now in
all
Kansas
right.
City, we are expecting a massive thunder shower, and I just got home last night, so the grass got a little thick. So I had to race out and cut it. So that's what I did just before coming on here. My apologies.
Nice. I like the baseball home plate in the back there.
Yeah, that's a
I love
lot of
baseballs.
years of
Yeah.
being in the game. I getting in making calling Major League Baseball was really the first goal I had coming out of college. So I did a number of years in the minor leagues and worked my way up until getting a chance in the big leagues. And you just kind of accumulate those balls through the years. I haven't accumulated any in many years. Most of that is from pretty early in my career.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mark, what made you want to become a sports broadcaster and get into this as your career?
Yeah, I think it's Jake, a pretty common story for a lot of broadcasters, and it started for me in high school when the recollection comes about that you know what I'm not a Division I athlete or I'm not going to play professionally. I love playing sports in high school. The main sports, baseball was always the one that was my real passionate love. And I also kind of got hurt in my junior year of high school. So I kind of ended my playing career to a degree, at least playing it effectively. And there was a little 10-watt YMCA radio station that sat right up the hill from where I went to school in the St. Louis suburbs. And I went up there and like had an interest in it. And first it was just kind of spinning records. And then I went to one of my former coaches at the school I went to and I said, "Hey, what if we broadcast the games on this 10-watt radio station?" And the coach is like, "Well, you probably not a whole lot of people are going to hear it, but that's probably not a big deal. Let's get approval from the school district," and that's what I did. So I started doing the baseball and basketball games, which were teams that I had played for previously. My tail end of my junior year and senior year. So that's how I got into it, and then from there, pursued it in college as well.
So you've worked many jobs in the field, you've worked for the Padres, you've worked for ESPN for what,
Mhm.
20 plus years now. You've done basketball, football, volleyball, baseball, everything. But overall, what is your favorite job that you have done in the sport broadcasting world?
Jake, it was probably following Major League Baseball on a day in day out basis. The time that I had to do that with the San Diego
Yeah.
Padres, and it's you being in the minor leagues as long as I was, where you're doing in the minor leagues, it's about 140 game season compared to the 162 in the big leagues, but it's a lot of games. And in the minor leagues, you're pretty much by yourself. It was mainly all radio really when I was coming up. Streaming was not a thing, so it was all radio, which was a great training ground because if you can do baseball radio, you can do a lot of things because baseball doesn't move at a very fast clip. I mean, the ball's only in play for about 11 or 12 minutes out of a 3 hour game, so you have to be able to kind of think on your feet and have a running conversation. If not with an analyst, then just kind of part of the broadcast. So for me, it's doing major league games. It is a massive grind because when you get in the big leagues and you combine that with a month of spring training, and then if you happen to make the postseason, which the Padres never did during my time there, we came very close a time or two, but it's 6 months, almost seven, a lot of times of just every day. Even when you have a day off in the big leagues, you're either traveling to somewhere or maybe coming home from somewhere else. So you make a lot of sacrifices. You don't get a lot of time to see your family. I mean, there's some choices you have to make, but doing baseball, what was it? I'm at a point now where I haven't done a full season of Major League Baseball in quite a while, and it's probably not anything I would go back to because, like I said, it is a grind, and I do like the a little bit more casual picking and choosing and calling events at ESPN.
Yeah, that kind of feeds into my next question, which is what is the difference in calling the same team every day versus doing, let's say, two new teams and even a new sport every couple days?
Yeah, on a couple different levels, Jake. I would say one, start with who your audience is in the big leagues on local television. I did TV for the Padres. It's you. I mean, I going through journalism school in college, I was taught by old school professors that worked in the business, and it was, hey, you people know that you work for the Padres. If just using the Padres, my example, but you don't want to be a homer. You want to have enough credibility. You just can't just spout the team line, and if the team's not playing well, you got to say something. Which I've got plenty of opportunity to do that with the Padres at times, but it, being able to to have that day in, day out with the same kind of viewing audience that have a vested interest in the team that you're calling was a whole lot of fun. ESPN's a totally different thing. You don't have a dog in the fight with whatever events that you're calling. There's two teams there. The preparation is different in the big leagues. There's games basically every day, and you're at the ballpark so much, you kind of just the preparation by osmosis because you're around the players and BP and everything all the time. Whereas with the ESPN game, for example, I was just doing an NCAA softball regional at the University of Georgia this past weekend. There are four teams there. So you prepare for four teams and you have to know them inside and out because there'll be four fan bases on top of a national TV audience that know a lot about those teams. So you have to be well prepared. So that's the difference between really kind of doing national TV and then calling local TV for a big league team.
How did you get that job with the Padres, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, not at all. So I initially came to ESPN in 2000 to do Major League Baseball. I was hired out of the minor leagues by ESPN and started that in 2000. So it with ESPN, it obviously wasn't MLB games every day because we would do them on Sunday, Monday, certain games, holidays, and stuff. So it wasn't a ton of games. And then when the Padres job opened up, and the reason it opened up was the MLB network began. It actually started in 2009. So after the end of the 2008 season, Matt Vasgersian, who was the longtime voice of the San Diego Padres TV, was hired by MLB Network. So that opened up the
Ah,
position. That really, there were a couple of jobs open that year. There was a opening with the Pittsburgh Pirates that Tim Neverett eventually got. But this Padre job, and I think the Pirates job were the only ones that really were open that offseason. And I was fortunate enough to get that one. I had a number of ESPN executives on my side that kind of pushed my narrative. Also, the two analysts I worked with, one was Mark Grant, former pitcher for the Padres and other teams, who was the primary one, but the secondary color analyst was Tony Gwynn, and I know Tony passed away a number of years ago, but a great friend. And Tony also did games for ESPN, so I had done games with Tony on ESPN. So one of the analysts with the Padres is somebody I had experience with. And I happened to be a Hall of Famer, and probably Mr. Padre, Tony Gwynn. So that didn't help. That didn't hurt my candidacy as well. So that's basically how I got the job, starting with the 2009 season with the Padres.
so yeah, now you call a lot of things that are very impressive, obviously, but something that I really think is really cool that you get to call is a lot of bowl games for college football. What is your
Mhm.
favorite part in calling those national bowl games for the rest of the country to see?
Yeah, Jake, that's a moving target now. For many years, I loved bowl season. We would do 4, 5, 6 bowl games every December with ESPN. Most of them would be on TV. A few would be with ESPN radio, uh, but they were a lot of fun. Whether it was the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio or wherever. I mean, all the different bowls through the years. They're a lot of fun. The landscape for that, quite frankly, has changed. Obviously, since the pandemic and with NIL and rosters seem to change right as the season ends. Unfortunately, I'm concerned about the future of the college bowls outside of the college football playoff. It just doesn't generate the interest as it used to. Those games do still rate pretty well, and that's what we do TV for. I mean, it's about getting ratings, and it's a company that's there to make a profit, just like Fox and CBS and all the others. But the environment around the games and the players and the coaches and the teams is totally different now. It was a big deal to go to a bowl game. Now, a lot of times, some of the players act like it's a pain because they're already looking to see where maybe perhaps they can get more money out at a different school. And then unfortunately where it's gotten to. But in its heyday, the years probably between 2010 and 12 up through the end of the teens, those were the mainly when I did a lot of bowl games. And those were fun times. Those were really good fun games.
Yeah, I really miss when prime bowl season was for me at least. Rose Bowl when Wisconsin, my Badgers ended up losing to the Oregon Ducks. I remember that game very vividly. It's unfortunate
Mhm.
with all the current stuff
Yeah, Jake,
with
and the
bowl
games like
season.
the Rose Bowl and Orange Bowl and those others like that, which get brought into the college football playoff now. Those bowls always are going to have a history, but it's kind of the smaller ones. through the
Yeah.
years, and you can reel off a bunch of those that are really going to have a hard time surviving.
They always change the names too, new sponsorships every few
Yeah.
years for each bowl.
Yeah,
I don't know if
sponsorships would change.
that
I remember
helps.
doing the day after Christmas. I did the bowl game at Ford Field in Detroit for many years. With the nice part, it was indoors. It's where the Detroit Lions played, so you weren't worried about the elements in Detroit. And the game rated really, really well because a lot of people are home the day after Christmas, and it was a fun game to do. It usually was a Big Ten team against the MAC champion, so you would get a good matchup, a good rivalry, and it would draw. But yeah, I always knew that usually the day after Christmas, I was going to be hanging out in Detroit calling that game, and it changed names. It was the Quick Lane Bowl, it was the Caesar's Pizza Bowl, and but it changed its names, but it was always the same at the same place.
Yeah, another thing that you call a lot of is that the Little League World Series, even if I don't know if you are in
Mhm.
Williamsport or not, but I know that you do about a lot of the regionals. What are like what's your favorite part about that? And like what challenges is it have to face when calling the Little League World Series?
Yeah, I have not ever done Williamsport, since the pandemic, I have done less Little League. But for a number of years, I would always go to San Bernardino for the West and Northwest regions, which would feed teams into Williamsport, and those that was the best of the Little League baseball. And not to diminish the Southeast and Northeast and Midwest and all the other places, but because of the teams in those regions, those two regions, Hawaii. The two California teams, Northern California, Southern California, Arizona, Washington. A lot of times, those teams would go on and win the Little League World Series, or at least win the U.S. side and play for the Little League World Series title. So, did that for a lot of years. Pandemic changed everything, and
Yeah,
they have not. We at ESPN, unfortunately, we don't put in the same amount of resources as we did pre-pandemic on those regionals that feed Williamsport. Still put the resources into Williamsport. That's still a big deal. But it was a lot of fun. The challenges are you're working with 12 and 13-year olds, which can be good and bad. It just depends on how some kids are really open and at that time, and some aren't. And you kind of want to find out uh, just a lot about them and feed people. You want to personalize the kids. The great thing about San Bernardino, for a number of years, my analyst was Aaron Boone. Aaron and
oh,
I did we did Little League together in San Bernardino at least 3 or 4 years, maybe five. And he enjoyed it as well. I mean, Aaron was a great broadcaster with us at ESPN, good friend, and still is. And he took the broadcasting side seriously, and we would interview every kid, every team that played in that. So that's the part of it. You got to do the digging. The kids do fill out questionnaires. A lot of times they're not all that candid, but you got to talk to them and to kind of draw the better information out of them. So meeting with all the kids would kind of be the challenge, but a fun challenge to really get good stories out of them.
yeah. I always liked watching the Little League World Series. I'm not too much into it anymore, but found it really cool that you were able
Hmm.
to call all that. But you
And
went to
games that
college.
draw really well, by the way. Also, Jake, I know I get back to the
Yeah,
ratings thing. People love watching Little League in August
it's
and that
fun.
time of year. Yeah,
Yeah, just two other things that you did is you went to Kansas and Missouri, who happen to just be rivals, both
yeah.
rival schools. But Missouri is known for their J school and all of the journalism side. Why did you choose Missouri to be the school that you attend for your college career?
Yeah, I grew up in St. Louis, so I mean that was a 2 hour drive away from home. So it regionally was convenient. Yes, you mentioned the history of it. I believe it is the first journalism school
Yeah.
ever created at a university. Uh, I'll show my age here. When I was at Mizzou, print journalism was still a really big thing, and it's really where at that time it put most of its resources into, though it did and still does own the NBC affiliate in Columbia, Missouri. So you would have an option as you got into broadcasting to go anchor the sportscast on KOMU TV there in Columbia, which that opportunity was there for me and it was interesting, but it was not what I wanted to do full time. Was in studio. I wanted to do play by play, and at that time, it has dramatically changed since when I was there. They did really not have any play-by-play people on staff at Missouri. Kansas did. A professor there named Tom Hedrick, who is still around, he is retired, who had called World Series and Super Bowls and all kind of
Wow.
events, was a on staff professor at Kansas. So I actually transferred from Mizzou to Kansas. I only went 3 semesters at KU because you had to go at least 3 semesters to get a degree. You just couldn't show up and do 1 or 2 semesters and get the degree. But most of my education was done at Mizzou. I happened to graduate from Kansas, and I exclusively went there for a professor who was I was became acquainted with because Kevin Harlan, who went to Kansas and also was a student of this same professor that I wound up being under as well. Kevin was doing sports at Mizzou at the time, and then the first time I ever met Kevin, and we're still kind of neighbors and close friends here in Kansas City. I said, "Hey, they don't have any play-by-play really here at Mizzou. What to do?" And he said, "Hey, look into some schools, and I'll recommend Kansas. That's where I went." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah. You know what? Let's just put it this way. I went to Kansas, yet I'm doing sports at Mizzou. And that's what it was. That's pretty much what convinced me. So I went and studied under Tom Hedrick, and that was the best thing for me. I mean, because he was a working even at that time, he was a professor at the school, but he also was still working in play by play. I think he was doing University of Wisconsin football
Oh,
back then on weekends. So that was the best move that I could have made, and it worked out very well.
that's awesome. Yeah. I'm not actually looking to Kansas a little bit, but Missouri definitely a school on my list.
Mhm.
But I'm a young sports broadcaster, and what is just the best advice that you could give to someone like me?
Yeah, I would say this, Jake. The opportunities are much more varied, and you can get better a lot faster. For me, in my time period, again, there wasn't much opportunity. You could go take a tape recorder to a local high school game and record it and take it back to your school professor. There are local, like in at Mizzou and at Kansas, and Kansas at the time, they have a student radio station, which the reason I transferred to Kansas is Professor Hedrick said at the time, "Hey, if you come here, you can do games at Allen Fieldhouse for doing on our
Hmm.
student station for Kansas men's basketball. As soon as you get here, it'll be baseball and softball in the spring. It'll be football in the fall." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So that opportunity was not there for me at Mizzou at the time, which again sealed the deal. That's all changed now with the school control rooms, and ESPN is a big part of this, especially in the SEC and the ACC. Every campus in both those conferences have multiple control rooms where they can produce events, streaming events, and also those events can be streamed on TV. For example, I was just at the University of Georgia, SEC school. So, of the 6 games that we did in that regional, and there were 4 teams in the region, obviously Georgia, the host, uh, the other 3 schools with everything that goes on around those events, you don't know what channel it's going to appear on. So Clemson was one of the teams there as well. So our first game was Clemson, and it was on the ACC network. Some games were just on ESPN Plus, but yesterday our what was the final game, which was Georgia and Clemson, was on ESPN 2. But all of that is produced out of the same school control room there on the campus, and it's that way around all the SEC and ACC schools. Now, a lot of those school control rooms are all staffed by students. A lot of them, except for like producer director for certain events, ESPN brings those people in. So you learn a lot more about TV, especially in streaming, because that's really where everything is going. I think radio is a great training ground, but most people watch television to get their content for games these days. And it's just there's so many. Whether you go to Syracuse or Kansas or Missouri, or there's all kinds of great schools out there. Now I have these school control rooms, and that's there where you can. I don't know if maybe by your sophomore year, once you get in for a little bit, you have a chance to go kind of do some games or learn the business. So there's a lot of ways to do it, and there's a lot more opportunity now than there was, say, 20 years ago.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity. I know also at all Big Ten schools, they have
Yes.
their own like student
Yeah, they
radio
do, and
station or whatever.
that's one area that I have worked that when Big Ten Network started, which was run by Fox and owned by the Big Ten schools, it started in 2007, and I actually left ESPN at the time to be one of the first crews for football for Big Ten Network, and it was the first conference to start its own over-the-air network. So I'm still really proud of that. The people that were there that were I was there for basically 2 football seasons and hoops before I got the San Diego Padres job. It was groundbreaking. I mean, and it really set the landscape for the way college sports is now. I mean, Big Ten Network is another one that for me was it was one of the things that kind of helped propel me in my career. So those conference networks, ACC network now, SEC network, which came after Big Ten network, are also greatly tied into the conferences and has more opportunities.
Well, two final questions for you. First, what's your favorite call that you've ever made?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and it's tough for me to really say a call because of the arts of play by play, and it is an art. It's not a science, and it's just being and TV is a lot different than radio, obviously, from a play by play perspective. But TV done well is really an orchestration between a number of people. My main job as a play by play announcer, say I'm doing a Big 12 basketball game at Allen Fieldhouse with Fran Fraschilla as my analyst, which we've done a bunch of times through the years. My main job, TV is the analyst medium. Yes, play by play has a role, but my main job is to yes caption the pictures and call the play, but it's to make Fran comfortable where he can say what happened and why it happened. I'll say the what, he says the why, and it's a good combination. You combine that with a great crew of camera people and producer, director, and the people cutting the show between the different cameras. That's really the art of TV. Radio is totally different in that play-by-play announcer, that's your medium. I mean, you are the eyes and ears, and you are on air. There's no other people. I mean, if you have an analyst, you work with them, but TV really is a group thing, and it takes a number of people to really do it well. But I wouldn't say it's a specific call because when the big moment happens, you need to be ready for it, and that's part of the art of good play-by-play. And I've been fortunate to have a number of those through my years, so I think there's a lot of them that I could kind of look back and say, yeah, that was a really good moment, and I think I really captured that well. I think it's more of a night. In 2011 with ESPN, we broadcast all the major games on the last day of the Major League Baseball season that led into an incredible night of baseball. There's some documentaries out there about it where all these weird things happen. I mean, Baltimore did some stuff that eliminated the Red Sox. Doug Glanville and I broadcast the Cardinals at Houston. The Cardinals were able to get in because the Phillies beat Atlanta that night. There were all kinds of weird things going on. And that night was Emmy Award winning for ESPN. We were all a part of that. I would say that night's probably one of my proudest achievements, being with all those crews and all those games and all those. It will never happen again in MLB history because now it's structured differently the way the season ends in MLB. But in 2011, if people go back, that last night is one of the most memorable nights in all of Major League Baseball history, and we were there to cover that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember the hearing about the David Freese walk-off home run
Yeah, of course,
and
Cardinals.
that
Yeah,
that
Cardinals went
series.
on to win the World Series that year, beating the
Yeah,
Rangers. Yeah, but they
that was
barely
awesome.
got in that last night. I mean, there was question when they were in Houston that night.
One final question that I have is I always end these shows with a quick sports prediction. So who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals this year?
Who's going to win the NBA Finals? Well, not Detroit. So, it's probably going to be Oklahoma City. I mean, it's
I think we got
I,
3 out of 4 said OKC so far, I think.
and I think the country and the TV networks have a love-hate relationship with Oklahoma City. It's really such a good team. I've lived in Oklahoma for a time in my life. I did Double A baseball in Tulsa for a number of years in
Ah,
the Texas League, so I like the state of Oklahoma. Still have a lot of good friends there, but I think people that live on the coasts don't know a lot about Oklahoma, and they're like, "What's going on, Oklahoma City?" Nah, nah, nah.
yeah.
I know a lot of people like yourself probably would love to see the Knicks. That would be
I'm
a
hoping.
that would be a better ratings draw for a lot of the networks, including ESPN. But I mean the Thunder. I mean they barely got by. I thought the Pacers were incredible last year just to get it to
Yeah.
a game seven. But the Thunder again looked like the best team.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming on. Tune in to episode 5 whenever I decide to release it. But again, thank you so much, Mark. This is episode 4 of Jake Morrison Show, and we'll see you next time.